Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, dreamers and doers, welcome to my video. Hello everyone. If you've been struggling to break through to the next level of success, then this video is exactly what you need right now. Here's a brutal truth about achieving success that most people refuse to face. The biggest enemy of your success isn't external circumstances, lack of opportunities, or even competition. The real enemy is living inside your own mind, and it's wearing your face. Many people love to analyze other people's success stories and give advice about what others should do differently. But today, I'm going to share with you the most critical insight about success that will change everything for you. Sometimes you have to lose certain versions of yourself to become who you're truly meant to be. Friends, my name is Hosen Babul, and I'm a motivational speaker who has dedicated my life to helping people break through their own mental barriers. If you find this video valuable, and it resonates with your journey toward transformation, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to join me on this life-changing journey we're embarking on together. Now, let's dive deep into the details of who you need to stop being so you can finally become who you're meant to be. Today, we're going to explore the 7 specific versions of yourself that are secretly sabotaging your success, keeping you stuck in mediocrity, and preventing you from reaching your true potential. The question isn't whether you're capable of success. The question is, are you willing to let go of the parts of yourself that are holding you back? Are you ready to lose these 7 versions of yourself that have been your biggest obstacles? Let's find out together, and let's start this transformation right now. The first self you must lose: the lazy self. Let's start with the most obvious but often misunderstood version of yourself: the lazy self. Now, before you click away thinking this doesn't apply to you because you work hard at your job or you're always busy, hear me out. The lazy self I'm talking about isn't about being physically inactive. It's about being intellectually and emotionally lazy. This is the version of you that chooses the path of least resistance every single time. It's the you that watches Netflix instead of reading that book that could change your perspective. It's the you that scrolls through social media instead of working on that side project. It's the you that says, "I'll figure it out later," instead of doing the research now. The lazy self is seductive because it feels comfortable. It tells you that you deserve to relax, that you've worked hard enough for today, that tomorrow is soon enough to start making changes. But here's what the lazy self doesn't tell you. Every day you choose comfort over growth is a day you're choosing to stay exactly where you are. I remember talking to a friend who had been complaining about his job for 3 years. 3 years of the same conversations about how unfulfilled he felt, how his boss didn't appreciate him, how he was meant for something bigger. When I asked him what he was doing to change his situation, he always had the same response: "I've been meaning to update my resume," or "I've been thinking about taking an online course," or "I just need to find the time to network." The lazy self had convinced him that thinking about change was the same as working toward change. It had tricked him into believing that good intentions were enough. But intentions without action are just dreams with a deadline that never comes. To lose the lazy self, you need to start distinguishing between motion and action. Motion is busy work that makes you feel productive, but doesn't move you closer to your goals. Action is purposeful effort that creates measurable progress toward what you want to achieve. The lazy self loves motion because it feels like work without the risk of failure or discomfort. It will have you reorganizing your workspace instead of making that important phone call. It will have you researching the perfect time to start instead of starting imperfectly right now. Here's your first challenge. Identify one thing you've been putting off that would genuinely move your life forward. Not something small and easy, but something that matters. Something that would make a real difference if you actually did it. Now, instead of adding it to your mental to-do list, where it can live comfortably alongside all the other things you've been meaning to do, commit to taking one concrete action on it within the next 24 hours. The death of the lazy self begins with the birth of the action-oriented self. And that birth happens the moment you choose discomfort over comfort, effort over ease, and progress over procrastination. The second self you must lose, the fearful self. If the lazy self is the enemy of action, then the fearful self is the enemy of possibility. This is the version of you that has built an entire identity around playing it safe, avoiding risks, and staying within the boundaries of what feels familiar and controllable. The fearful self speaks in a voice that sounds reasonable, practical, and protective. It says things like, "What if it doesn't work out?" And "What will people think?" And "Maybe I'm not ready yet." It disguises itself as wisdom, as prudent planning, as responsible decision-making. But underneath all those rational-sounding excuses lies pure, paralyzing fear. The fearful self has convinced you that failure is something to be avoided at all costs, rather than something to be learned from. It has taught you that rejection is a reflection of your worth, rather than simply information about fit or timing. It has trained you to see every opportunity as a potential catastrophe waiting to happen. But here's what the fearful self doesn't understand. The biggest risk in life is not taking any risks at all. While you're busy protecting yourself from the possibility of failure, disappointment, or embarrassment, life is passing you by. Opportunities are being missed. Connections are not being made. Dreams are withering away from lack of sunlight. I once worked with someone who had been in the same entry-level position for 8 years, not because she wasn't capable of more, but because every time a promotion opportunity arose, the fearful self would take over. "I don't have enough experience yet," she would say. "What if I'm not good at managing people? What if I fail and they fire me?" The fearful self had convinced her that her current situation, while not ideal, was at least predictable. It was safe. She knew how to do her job with her eyes closed. She knew exactly what was expected of her, and she knew she could meet those expectations without stretching beyond her comfort zone. But safety, when it becomes your primary goal, becomes a prison. The fearful self will keep you locked in that prison, telling you it's for your own protection, while the world outside continues to evolve and move forward without you. To lose the fearful self, you need to reframe your relationship with uncertainty and failure. Instead of seeing them as things to be avoided, you need to start seeing them as necessary ingredients in the recipe for growth and success. Every person you admire, every success story you've heard, every breakthrough that has ever happened in any field started with someone deciding to act in spite of their fear, not because they didn't have any fear. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward when fear is screaming at you to stay put. Start small if you need to. Apply for a position that feels slightly beyond your current qualifications. Start a conversation with someone who intimidates you. Share an idea that feels vulnerable. Take a class in something you've always been curious about but never felt ready for. The fearful self dies a little bit every time you choose courage over comfort, every time you choose growth over safety, every time you choose the possibility of failure over the guarantee of staying exactly where you are. The third self you must lose, the "I can't handle this" self. This is perhaps the most insidious version of yourself because it masquerades as self-awareness. This is the version of you that has decided, often based on past experiences or inherited beliefs, that you simply don't have what it takes to handle certain challenges, emotions, or situations. The "I can't handle this" self has created a detailed inventory of all the things that are supposedly too much for you. It might say you can't handle conflict, so you avoid difficult conversations that could resolve important issues. It might say you can't handle stress, so you shy away from opportunities that would stretch your capabilities. It might say you can't handle disappointment, so you don't set ambitious goals or take meaningful risks. This version of yourself has convinced you that avoiding challenging situations is a form of self-care, when in reality, it's a form of self-limitation. It has taught you to see your emotional and mental capacity as fixed rather than expandable. It has trained you to run from discomfort instead of learning to dance with it. But here's the truth that the "I can't handle this" self doesn't want you to know. You are far more resilient, capable, and adaptable than you give yourself credit for. The human spirit has an incredible capacity for growth, healing, and transformation. You have survived 100% of your worst days so far. You have navigated challenges that once seemed impossible. You have learned, adapted, and evolved in ways that your younger self could never have imagined. The "I can't handle this" self often develops as a protective mechanism after difficult experiences. Maybe you went through a painful breakup and decided you can't handle putting yourself out there romantically again. Maybe you failed at something important and decided you can't handle the pressure of high-stakes situations. Maybe you experienced criticism or rejection and decided you can't handle being vulnerable or visible. But what feels like protection is actually prevention. You're not protecting yourself from pain. You're preventing yourself from joy, growth, and connection. You're not avoiding failure. You're avoiding the possibility of success. I want to share a story about a woman I know who believed for years that she couldn't handle public speaking. This belief was based on one experience in middle school where she forgot her lines during a school play and was embarrassed in front of the entire auditorium. For the next 2 decades, she organized her entire career around avoiding any situation that would require her to speak in front of groups. This meant turning down leadership opportunities, avoiding networking events, and staying in roles that kept her safely behind the scenes. The "I can't handle this" self had convinced her that her middle school experience was proof of a permanent incapacity rather than simply a learning opportunity. Finally, after watching several less qualified colleagues get promoted to positions she wanted, she realized that her avoidance of public speaking wasn't protecting her from embarrassment. It was preventing her from advancement. She signed up for a public speaking course. And yes, it was uncomfortable at first. But guess what? She handled it. Not only did she handle it, she discovered that she was actually quite good at it when she gave herself the chance to develop the skill. The "I can't handle this" self keeps you small by convincing you that your current capacity is your permanent capacity. But capacity isn't fixed. It's developed. Just like your physical muscles grow stronger when you consistently challenge them with resistance. Your emotional and mental muscles grow stronger when you consistently challenge them with situations that stretch your comfort zone. To lose the "I can't handle this" self, you need to start proving to yourself that you can, in fact, handle more than you think. Start with situations that feel slightly challenging but not overwhelming. Practice tolerating discomfort for short periods. Build evidence that contradicts the limiting beliefs this version of yourself has been telling you. Remember, you don't have to handle everything perfectly. You just have to handle it. And handling something imperfectly is infinitely better than not handling it at all. The fourth self you must lose: the excuse-making self. Now we come to one of the most creative and persistent versions of yourself: the excuse-making self. This is the master storyteller, the creative genius, the problem identifier who can find 17 reasons why something won't work before you've even tried it once. The excuse-making self is brilliant at its job. It can take any goal, any opportunity, any possibility for positive change, and immediately generate a comprehensive list of obstacles, limitations, and reasons why now isn't the right time. It's not just lazy, it's not just fearful. It's actively working against your success by providing you with rational-sounding justifications for inaction. This version of yourself has convinced you that identifying problems is the same as being realistic, that pointing out obstacles is the same as being prepared, that explaining why something is difficult is the same as being thoughtful and analytical. But in reality, the excuse-making self is just fear and laziness wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. The excuse-making self loves to focus on all the things you don't have. You don't have enough time, enough money, enough experience, enough connections, enough education, enough support. It will spend hours cataloging everything that's missing from your life, while completely ignoring everything that's present and available. It will tell you that you need to wait until you have more time, as if time is something that gets handed to you rather than something you create through priorities and boundaries. It will tell you that you need more money, while ignoring all the things you could start doing right now that cost nothing but effort and attention. The excuse-making self is also a master of the moving goalpost. When you address one excuse, it immediately generates another. When you save up the money you said you needed, suddenly the issue becomes time. When you create the time, suddenly the issue becomes not having the right skills. When you develop the skills, suddenly the issue becomes not knowing the right people. I once knew someone who spent 3 years explaining why he couldn't start his own business. First, it was because he didn't have enough savings, so he worked extra hours and saved money. Then it was because he didn't have enough business knowledge, so he read books and took courses. Then it was because the market was too competitive, so he researched niches and found opportunities. Then it was because he didn't have the right connections, so he started networking and building relationships. But every time he addressed one excuse, the excuse-making self would immediately generate 3 more. After 3 years of preparation, he was no closer to actually starting his business than when he began, even though he had addressed every single obstacle he had initially identified. The excuse-making self had kept him busy addressing imaginary barriers, while the real barrier, the need to actually start, remained untouched. The excuse-making self operates on the premise that conditions need to be perfect before you can begin, that all obstacles need to be resolved before you can take action, that you need to have all the answers before you can ask any questions. But this is backwards thinking. Action creates clarity. Movement generates momentum. Starting imperfectly is infinitely better than planning perfectly but never beginning. To lose the excuse-making self, you need to stop being a problem identifier and start being a solution creator. Instead of immediately looking for reasons why something won't work, train yourself to immediately look for ways it could work. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, start focusing on what you do have and how you can use it. Challenge yourself to respond to obstacles with creativity rather than capitulation. When you encounter a barrier, instead of using it as evidence that you should give up or wait, use it as evidence that you need to get creative, resourceful, and innovative. The excuse-making self dies when you stop negotiating with it and start acting in spite of it. Every time you take action, despite having a perfectly good excuse not to, you weaken its power over your life. The fifth self you must lose, the procrastinating self, closely related to the excuse-making self, but distinct in its own special way, is the procrastinating self. This is the version of you that has perfected the art of delay, the science of later, the philosophy of tomorrow. The procrastinating self is seductive because it never actually says no to your dreams and goals. It just says, not right now. It promises that you'll get to it eventually, that you'll start when the timing is better, that you'll begin when you feel more motivated or inspired or ready. This version of yourself has convinced you that there's a perfect moment coming when everything will align, when you'll feel completely prepared and totally motivated, when starting will feel easy and natural. It has taught you to wait for inspiration to strike rather than creating the conditions for inspiration to find you. The procrastinating self loves to make grand plans for the future while doing nothing meaningful in the present. It will spend hours researching the perfect morning routine, but never actually implement one. It will create elaborate workout plans, but never actually go to the gym. It will design detailed business strategies, but never actually start the business. This version of yourself has mastered the art of feeling productive without actually being productive. It confuses planning with doing, intention with action, thinking about change with actually changing. It will have you believe that someday you'll transform into a completely different person who doesn't struggle with procrastination, and that person will effortlessly accomplish all the things you're putting off today. But here's what the procrastinating self doesn't want you to realize. That future version of yourself who will naturally feel motivated to do the things you're avoiding today doesn't exist. That person who will wake up one morning and suddenly feel excited about all the tasks you currently dread is a fantasy. The person who will accomplish your goals is the same person you are right now, just with different habits and different choices. The motivation you're waiting for isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through action. I remember working with a client who had been planning to start a fitness routine for over 2 years. She had researched gyms, bought workout clothes, downloaded apps, created playlists, and even meal planned. She had done everything except actually exercise. When I asked her what she was waiting for, she said she was waiting to feel motivated. She had been taught by the procrastinating self that motivation comes first, then action follows. But this is backwards. Action comes first, then motivation follows. You don't feel like doing something and then do it. You do something and then feel like continuing to do it. The procrastinating self keeps you trapped in a cycle of waiting for perfect conditions that will never arrive. It has you believe that there will come a time when you'll have more time, more energy, more clarity, more motivation. But time doesn't expand, energy doesn't magically appear, clarity doesn't develop in a vacuum, and motivation doesn't strike like lightning. The procrastinating self also loves to overwhelm you with the enormity of your goals, so that starting feels impossible. It will have you focus on the entire journey instead of just the next step. It will have you think about writing an entire book instead of just writing one page. It will have you think about losing 50 pounds instead of just making one healthy choice. To lose the procrastinating self, you need to become someone who takes imperfect action consistently, rather than someone who takes perfect action occasionally. You need to lower the bar for starting and raise the bar for stopping. Make your initial commitment so small that it feels almost silly not to do it. Want to start exercising? Commit to putting on your workout clothes. Want to start writing? Commit to opening your laptop and writing one sentence. Want to start that business? Commit to spending 15 minutes researching one small aspect of your idea. The procrastinating self loses power every time you choose to start before you feel ready. Every time you take action despite not feeling motivated. Every time you do something small today instead of planning to do something big tomorrow. The sixth self you must lose, the doubting self. We're now entering the territory of the most psychologically sophisticated enemy of your success, the doubting self. This isn't just uncertainty about external circumstances. This is deep, persistent doubt about your own capabilities, worth, and potential. The doubting self is the internal critic that questions every decision before you make it and second-guesses every action after you take it. It's the voice that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" when you consider pursuing something ambitious. It's the voice that says, "You're not qualified for this" when opportunities arise. It's the voice that insists, "People like you don't do things like this" when you dare to dream beyond your current circumstances. This version of yourself has appointed itself as the guardian of your limitations. It believes that by keeping your expectations low and your goals modest, it's protecting you from disappointment and failure. It thinks that by constantly pointing out your flaws and shortcomings, it's keeping you humble and realistic. But the doubting self isn't protecting you. It's imprisoning you. It's not keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. It's not being realistic. It's being pessimistic. And there's a huge difference between those things. The doubting self loves to collect evidence to support its case against you. It will remember every mistake you've ever made while forgetting every success you've achieved. It will focus on every critical comment you've received while dismissing every compliment. It will highlight every time you fell short while ignoring every time you exceeded expectations. This version of yourself has convinced you that confidence is arrogance, that believing in yourself is delusion, that pursuing big goals is setting yourself up for inevitable disappointment. It has taught you to focus on your weaknesses while downplaying your strengths, to magnify your failures while minimizing your achievements. The doubting self is particularly dangerous because it often sounds like wisdom. It presents itself as the voice of reason, the practical one, the one who's just trying to keep you grounded in reality. But there's nothing wise about systematically undermining your own confidence and potential. I once worked with a talented woman who had been offered a promotion to a leadership role she had been working toward for years. Instead of celebrating, she immediately started cataloging all the reasons she wasn't qualified. She had the education, the experience, and the track record. But the doubting self immediately went to work, generating a list of inadequacies. "I've never managed a team this large," it said. "What if I'm not a natural leader? What if people don't respect me? What if I make mistakes that hurt the company?" The doubting self had taken a clear vote of confidence from her superiors and twisted it into evidence of impending failure. The doubting self operates on the assumption that you need to be perfect before you can succeed, that you need to have all the answers before you can ask any questions, that you need to be fully qualified before you can accept any opportunities. But this is impossible math. No one is ever fully qualified for the next level before they reach it. Qualification comes through doing, not through waiting. The doubting self also loves to compare your behind-the-scenes reality with everyone else's highlight reel. It will have you believe that everyone else is naturally confident, naturally talented, naturally successful, while you're just pretending, and everyone can see through your act. But this comparison is not only unfair, it's inaccurate. Everyone is figuring it out as they go. Everyone has moments of uncertainty and insecurity. Everyone is, to some degree, improvising. To lose the doubting self, you need to start collecting evidence for your capabilities rather than against them. You need to become your own advocate rather than your own prosecutor. You need to start focusing on your potential rather than your limitations. Begin keeping a record of your wins, both big and small. Write down compliments you receive, problems you solve, challenges you overcome, goals you achieve. When the doubting self starts building its case against you, present it with counter-evidence. Also, start reframing doubt as information rather than truth. When doubt arises, instead of accepting it as fact, ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Or, what would I attempt if I was confident in my abilities? Then consider taking that action anyway, not because you're free from doubt, but because you're bigger than your doubt. The doubting self loses power every time you act despite uncertainty, every time you pursue an opportunity, despite feeling underqualified, every time you choose faith in your potential over fear of your limitations. The seventh self. You must lose. The chaotic planning self. Finally, we come to the version of yourself that might seem like it's actually trying to help. The chaotic planning self. This is the part of you that creates elaborate, complex, unrealistic plans that look impressive on paper but are impossible to execute in real life. The chaotic planning self loves to create detailed strategies that involve massive life overhauls, complete personality changes, and perfect execution across multiple areas simultaneously. It's the version of you that decides you're going to wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for 30 minutes, work out for an hour, eat perfectly, work on a side project, read for personal development, and maintain perfect work-life balance starting Monday. This version of yourself believes that more complex means more effective, that more detailed means more likely to succeed, that more ambitious means more impressive, It creates plans that would challenge a superhero, and then wonders why you, a regular human with regular human limitations, can't stick to them. The chaotic planning self sets you up for failure by creating standards that are impossible to maintain. When you inevitably fall short of these unrealistic expectations, it provides evidence to all the other limiting versions of yourself. The doubting self gets to say, "See? I told you that you couldn't do it." The excuse-making self gets to say, "This proves that change is too difficult." The procrastinating self gets to say, "Maybe we should wait until we're really ready." This version of yourself has confused complexity with effectiveness. It believes that if a plan doesn't involve dramatic changes across every area of your life, then it's not worth doing. It has taught you that small, consistent improvements are somehow less valuable than massive, unsustainable transformations. The chaotic planning self also loves to plan for the person you wish you were, rather than the person you actually are. It creates schedules for someone who doesn't have your current responsibilities, habits for someone who doesn't have your current challenges, and routines for someone who doesn't have your current limitations. I remember working with someone who had created what he called his ultimate life optimization plan. It was a 47-page document that outlined how he was going to transform every aspect of his existence. New morning routine, new diet, new exercise program, new learning schedule, new social habits, new financial strategies, new productivity systems. The plan was so comprehensive and detailed that it would have impressed any efficiency expert. But when he tried to implement it, he lasted exactly 4 days. The plan was so complex and demanding that it required perfect execution in every area simultaneously. The moment one element fell apart, the entire system collapsed. He went from trying to be perfect at everything to giving up on everything. The chaotic planning self had created a plan that was theoretically sound, but practically impossible. It had failed to account for the reality of human behavior, the power of existing habits, and the importance of gradual, sustainable change. To lose the chaotic planning self, you need to embrace the power of simplicity and the magic of consistency. Instead of trying to change everything at once, focus on changing one thing at a time. Instead of creating elaborate systems, create simple habits. Instead of planning for the perfect version of yourself, plan for the real version of yourself. Start with what I call stupidly simple changes. Changes so small and easy that you'd be embarrassed not to do them. Changes that take less than 5 minutes and require no special equipment, preparation, or circumstances. Changes that fit into your current life rather than requiring you to build an entirely new life around them. Want to read more? Don't plan to read for an hour every day. Plan to read for 5 minutes every day. Want to exercise more? Don't plan to spend 2 hours at the gym. Plan to do 10 push-ups every morning. Want to eat better? Don't overhaul your entire diet. Plan to eat 1 piece of fruit every day. The chaotic planning self loses power every time you choose simple over complex, sustainable over dramatic, consistent over perfect. It dies when you realize that small changes compound into big results, that simple plans are more likely to be executed than complex ones, and that progress is more important than perfection. The path forward. Becoming who you're meant to be. Now that we've identified these 7 versions of yourself that need to go, you might be wondering, who's left? If you eliminate the lazy self, the fearful self, the "I can't handle this" self, the excuse-making self, the procrastinating self, the doubting self, and the chaotic planning self. What remains? What remains is your authentic, empowered, action-oriented self. This is the version of you that takes consistent action despite imperfect conditions. This is the you that faces challenges with curiosity rather than fear. This is the you that sees obstacles as puzzles to solve rather than walls to stop at. This is the you that starts before you feel ready and continues, even when motivation wanes. This version of yourself doesn't need perfect circumstances to begin. It doesn't need complete certainty to move forward. It doesn't need detailed plans to take action. It doesn't need external validation to believe in its potential. The transformation from who you are today to who you're meant to become isn't about adding more to yourself. It's about subtracting what doesn't serve you. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more yourself. It's not about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about unleashing what's right with you. This process isn't easy, and it isn't quick. These versions of yourself didn't develop overnight, and they won't disappear overnight. They will fight back. They will try to convince you that change is dangerous, that you're safer staying exactly where you are, that you need them to protect you from disappointment and failure. But every time you choose action over avoidance, courage over comfort, progress over perfection, you strengthen the version of yourself that's aligned with your goals and dreams. Every time you start before you feel ready, every time you continue despite setbacks, every time you choose growth over safety, you become more of who you're meant to be. The person you're becoming is already inside you. They're not someone you need to create from scratch. They're someone you need to uncover. They're not someone you need to become. They're someone you need to remember. They're not someone you need to find. They're someone you need to choose. Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process of achieving it. And sometimes, becoming who you're meant to be requires losing who you've been. It requires saying goodbye to the versions of yourself that have been holding you back, and hello to the versions that will move you forward. The choice is yours. You can continue to let these limiting versions of yourself run your life, or you can start the process of transformation today. You can keep making excuses, or you can start making progress. You can keep waiting for perfect conditions, or you can start creating better conditions through your actions. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. The life you want is waiting on the other side of the comfort zone you're afraid to leave. The success you dream about is possible, but it requires you to become the kind of person who achieves that success. The question isn't whether you're capable of change. The question is whether you're willing to do what change requires. Are you ready to lose the versions of yourself that are keeping you small, so you can become the version of yourself that's meant to be great? Your transformation starts now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel more ready. Now, today. With the next decision you make, the next action you take, the next version of yourself you choose to embody. Who do you have to lose to be successful? Now you know. The real question is, are you ready to let them go? If this video has challenged you to think differently about yourself and your potential, make sure to like and subscribe for more content that will help you unlock the best version of yourself. And most importantly, don't just watch this video, implement it. choose one of the 7 versions of yourself we discussed today and take one concrete action to prove that version wrong. Your future self will thank you for it. Remember, you're not just watching content. You're building the foundation for the life you want to create. Every video you engage with, every insight you implement, every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. Make sure you're voting for someone you'll be proud to be. The transformation begins now. Let's build something extraordinary together.